Hello, gorgeous. My name is Betha, and welcome to Capleo, where I do readings for strangers on the internet. If you saw the catchy little title and the fun little thumbnail that I definitely did not put together with stickers and PixArt, you're already ahead of me because I have no idea what the hell we're going to be reading about today. But let's go into it blind and have a good time. Or at least I'm going into it blind, and we're both going to have a good time. If you're new to Pick-a-Piles, I have these 3 pins in front of you as an option for each of the piles here. Essentially, you're going to choose whichever one feels like it's calling to you, whichever one you kind of have a connection towards, or, if it's kind of confusing, pause the video, take a couple deep breaths, center yourself with your intuition, and see where your gut pulls you. If more than one seems to be calling to you, there might be more than one message here for you. Take it at your own pace, take it at your own time. A lot of times when I'm watching these videos, I don't watch it through one sit down the whole way through. Takes me portions, so depending on how long this gets to be, totally understand that. But if none of these feel like they're kind of vibing with you, that's totally cool too. It might not be your time to see this video, we might see each other again in the future, or if you're interested, I do have a catalog of other videos still on my channel that you can go see if any one of those kind of feel like they're speaking to you in any way. But without further ado, like I said, we have 3 options here. I'm going to show them to you one by one, and then all I need you to do is go down to the description below and click whichever timestamp aligns with the pile that you chose. So with pile 1 here, we have this right before the end credit scene with, or the end credit scene, however you want to interpret that, for the Breakfast Club here. For the life of me, I have been struggling to remember his name, so we're just going to leave it at that. Good movie, by the way. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. We have this little shadow Peter Pan here for pile 2. And for pile 3, we have Natsu from Fairy Tail in this little angry, charged up state. So like I said, choose whichever one feels like it's vibing to you, whichever one kind of called to you, your intuition nudged you towards. Go right to the description below and click the timestamp. I'll see you there. Starting strong, pile number 1, hello, 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 with the Breakfast Club end credit scene. God bless, I can't remember his name and it's driving me nuts. But we're gonna call him the Rebel. Because I feel like that's kind of like aligning up with his energy and the group that I have here's energy. This idea of like, whether or not this is what your internal world speaks to you, I think a lot of people in your sphere might see you as somebody who doesn't seem to give a fuck and is more about the bit or making jokes for their own humor, and probably seen as a little bit of a class clown or disruptive type within your youth. Something else strongly I would say is if you haven't seen The Breakfast Club, I would highly recommend that. I think that there is a lesson in there for you or some sort of synchronicity for you to see. But if you have watched The Breakfast Club, I also think that this is a call to revisit that movie. I personally think it's a great movie and has a great lesson behind it, but I think there's something in there for you as well. So like I said, just a recommendation. I will say the initial time that I tried to record this, I got this this analogy that came through, and I think I want to share it again. I saw this image of like Frosted Flakes, and my immediate thought was cornflakes. And what's kind of coming through with that analogy to me for this group, for your message, is this concept of underselling, and I think it's either yourself or your craft. I get this idea of like somebody trying to sell some sort of like artistic endeavor that they've created, like say you knit some sort of like pocket little holder for phone cases or something, or like for phones or something. I get this idea that like you are not selling to the price of the energy and the worth that you put into something. Like I said, for some of you guys, I do think it's some sort of product or career-oriented venture, because I can also get this idea that maybe in your job you've been selling yourself short on some things. Maybe you really deserve a raise and you've kind of been like avoiding or procrastinating talking to your employer about it. But overall, this, for those of you that it doesn't resonate career-wise, although I do think that is a majority of you here, there's this idea as well of like, maybe it's selling yourself short. Like, imagine you were given the option, and we're putting all like whatever else aside, just like for taste, you're given this option, or like a child, we'll take a child here, is given the option of like, they're told, here, you can have cornflakes to eat. The child's not very excited. It's not very sweet, not very tasty, whatever. They'll eat a bowl of cornflakes. But if they're told that they're going to be eating a bowl of Frosted Flakes, well, you know a child is going to love that sugary goodness. I'm hoping it's translating properly. You're seeing what I mean here. I know it's a silly analogy. That's what I thought too. But anyway, that's the main portion of the beginning of this video. Let's get into a brief tarot message to kind of see what else wants to pop out here. Queen of Swords in reverse. Seven of Cups in reverse. Let's get one more. Ooh, that one wanted to go upright, and I think I know why. The Seven of Pentacles upright. Okay. And the bottom of the deck energy, which I'm going back to taking because, you know, Nine of Cups. I get now, upon further reflection with this reading, that we were talking about in the beginning this vibe of selling yourself short to some degree. And I think that that's kind of what's making the situation that you're currently in a little more confusing. I see that in the current position of like the energy that we're dealing with or the energy that we're about to step into, although I do think this is more of just like the current vibe, there is some sort of decision to be made or some sort of plan to be set forth in terms of something that you've been wishing for or asking for from the universe. This feels like, for lack of a better term, some sort of manifestation that you've been desiring. And it feels like something that's been like years in the making, if that makes sense. Like I said, this could go back to maybe this is a job that you've been with for a while or a career path that you've been working on. Let's say that you were like in school for a while or something like that. For others of you, this could be a product that you've been working on perfecting to sell for a while. But I could also see this, if it doesn't feel career-oriented, like I said, this could also be personally for you. Maybe when it comes to romantic connections or friendship connections of some sort, like selling yourself short. But there's this idea of needing to reflect on how far you've come here. I'm getting this idea that maybe you have other people kind of in your ear in this way of like, say you were asking people that you trusted or people in your life for their opinion on what decision to make or what path to go down, for lack of a better term. There is this needing to come back to yourself, even if you hear, like what I'm hearing is like, come back to yourself after constructive criticism. So maybe with some of the people that you've talked to about making a decision here, there's been some sort of like, I'm getting this sense of like almost humbling. And that's not to say that it's positive or negative, but I do think it's coming from more of like a projection stance, if that makes sense. Not necessarily saying that there's no truth to what these people might be also echoing to as well, but it's this concept of like, you know, taking what they say and hearing it is, like I said, like a constructive criticism of sorts, but ultimately going with your gut. You know what I mean? Like maybe somebody had told you originally, if we go back to the analogy of like you're knitting phone cases, maybe somebody told you originally like, hey, these will sell a lot better if you sell them for $12, but something in your gut is like, no, you know, with the time and the energy that I put into this, this feels more like a $20, $25 piece, and that's what I want to put it for. Does that make sense? That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting, where it's like, right now, this Queen of Swords in reverse energy feels a little scattered and anxious, and I think it's on the premise of hearing, like, there's a lot of echoing going on. I'm getting this sense of, like, you're walking in a cave, and you talk, but instead of hearing your voice echoed back, you're hearing, like, a bunch of other voices echoed back. And it's like within the echoing of all of these other voices, it's difficult to hear your voice return to you. So I think there's a bit of like this ask here that when it feels like there are so many choices and options, to take kind of like a hermit mode moment. If you're a tarot reader, you get my vibe on the hermit mode, but it's essentially just asking you to take a moment to yourself, you know, whether that's like going into your room and taking 5 minutes in the dark to just like sit with your thoughts and meditate, or go on for a drive, you know, go for a little walk, whatever you need to do to take some time for you to kind of shut out the voices of what everybody else thinks and listen to your own internal compass. I'm so sorry there. That's a little chaotic. Something about earthquakes is kind of coming through here. I'm thinking that's more on the premise, though, of, like I said, there's this anxious vibe that's been coming through here, and I think you're really being called and asked to just allow yourself to ground at this time, or find a way to ground again. It's this, like, idea that you don't want to make a wrong decision to such a degree that I could see that you might have possibly, for some of you, put yourself in this, like, consistent fight or flight energy to, like, this freeze state. You know what I mean? I say fight or flight just because that's normally what comes, but freeze, fawn, that kind of state of it, where it's like, I don't know what decision to make to such a degree that I'm not going to make a decision. And if you've been seeming like there might be some quote unquote what feels like bad karma recently, like, I don't think it's bad karma, but I think it's like this loss of luck, so to speak, where it's like, you know, brand new white shoes. Oh, damn, I just stepped in a mud puddle that I thought was just water. Or I'm driving along and all of a sudden I get a flat tire. I don't think that that's meant to be like oh, this is bad karma, I did something wrong. I think these are just like little misfortunes of bad luck to kind of get you to focus more on the present. I think there's kind of like this escapist idea that's going on right now with this like freeze state where we're not making a decision. So we're kind of like standing by ourselves, not moving forward. I'm hoping this is coming through properly. But with all of this going on, the answer is to kind of reflect for a minute. Reflect on the amount of work, effort, just who you've become over this time and how far you've come with what you've been doing or creating. When it comes to the concept of, like I said, this is either selling yourself short or selling your craft short, something with that in some way. And I think the ask here is to, like, it sounds simpler than it is, but it's to truly see what you deem you are worth. Not with what everybody else has been echoing to you, or what other people in your field or other people like you have presented themselves as, or like sold their craft for. This is you specifically. What is your desire? I like to think of it like this. What is your desire, the manifestation? And what else would you have to do, quote unquote, to be deserving of that? Does that make sense? Because I think upon reflection of like how far you've come in the work that you've done, I think you're going to recognize in this moment that you are currently worthy of this thing that you have been gunning for years, this desire that you've had for such a long time. It doesn't have to be for years for all of you. I just think that it feels like something that is so long in the works, which I think translates to, like, if this is new for your career field or your craft, this could also go back to this idea of you working on your own self-worth. Or, like I said before, maybe you've been going to school for such a long time that you are new to the work field that you are entering in. But that doesn't mean that you don't have the skill, the knowledge, or the capability. Does that make sense? Especially, it's so easy, I feel like, to go through something like school, like college for years and come out with this imposter syndrome because we think when we're going into it that we're going to be so educated on this field that we're in. But there's that idea that you might be a teacher at some point in your life. You might have enough knowledge to teach other people, but you will always be a student. I mean, it's the same thing with like when we open up to the idea of like science, there are no definites, right? There's always this idea that you should be keeping an open mind because anything can be proven or disproven. And I think, like I said, once you reflect on the beginning of whatever this is, whether it be, you know, your self-help journey, your self-worth, your career field, going through school, the project that you've been working on, something you want to sell. If you look at the beginning of where you started, going to now, I think it's going to be a lot easier to be in this 9 of Cups energy. And this 9 of Cups energy in this spread is kind of giving me this idea of not settling for less than what you deserve. And for some of you guys, if it feels like you haven't been in that freeze state where you don't know whether or not to make a decision, I think it goes back to maybe you've been making decisions that feel like settling to your soul. It's this idea that like, it feels a little uncomfortable to be in this area, to do this thing, to set this at this price, because you deserve more. You deserve better. Yeah, it goes back to, like I said, not settling for less than because you're waiting for the right thing to come in, the thing that is matching to your vibe, the thing that is matching to your worth. And I do want to say for some of you guys, when we're recognizing this as like a career thing, money isn't everything either. I mean, yes, it's great to have, and I'm never going to tell you how to make your decisions, truly. Or if I do, I apologize, that's never my intention. But there is this idea here that you might be presented with another offer that doesn't look as good on paper because of the money situation. But remember to go back to the concept of like what your values are and what you want. Does that make sense? If it's not money for some of you guys, I think it's this idea of there's going to be this offer that's presented, or there has been this offer that's presented that looks really good on paper and checks a lot of boxes. But there's going to be something else there's something else here that you don't really align with, whether it be morally or aesthetically or monetary in a different way, or yeah, even monetary. Maybe it's like they're offering you $24 an hour, but you're really looking for $25 an hour. Hold out for the right thing is what I'm hearing. Like I said, there's this concept here when it comes to the 9 of Cups where it's just like, I will not settle for anything less than what I want. I mean, when we look at all the trophies he has on his wall up here, that's in this scenario, I'm seeing these cups as trophies. When we look at all the trophies he has here, he definitely has a right to say, I am not settling for less than what I'm worth because I have all this evidence to prove it. And I do think that there's a possibility that you've been kind of given some of this evidence within the last couple of months. And it's just whether or not you've been, I think right now as I'm saying this, some of the examples kind of hit you. But I think it's something where it's like, I'm hearing open your eyes. So maybe it's like open your eyes a little bit to the evidence that the universe is trying to give you of your worth, if that makes sense. And if you do have examples of that, because I'm very curious, please let me know in the comments. Like, it's stuff like this that I'm like, I could see potentially how this could work in somebody else's life, but like, I'm not living your life. I don't see your examples. But yeah, and I think going back to everything here, I do think that you guys, whether or not you feel that way, present with this I don't give a fuck energy. And I think that that's kind of what you're being asked to embody here. Even if it feels like a little bit of a fake it till you make it kind of vibe, I think we're entering this level of our life where we're tuning out the surrounding noise. Now, remembering, if we're asking the people that we love for advice, there's a reason that we love these people. There's a reason we respect these people. We do also want to hear them out because they could have something helpful to offer to our perspective. But remembering, too, it doesn't matter how much somebody loves you. At the end of the day, only you know your worth, your truth, and your story. So, you know, taking the constructive criticism as it comes, but remembering to listen to your inner compass. And like I said, with this reflection, going back, whether it be going back in old journals, going back in old pictures, just reminiscing over the last however long you've started with this thing, I think you're going to recognize your worth a little bit better with this. Or, I don't really like the way I said that. You're going to recognize how much you are worthy of. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. I'm glad that this was a little more of a brief reading. I know we usually go a little bit longer than that, but I think we've got it all. If nothing else, thank you so much for staying for the reading. Oh, you know what? I got 2 sign symbols and synchronicities, 3 sign symbols and synchronicities for y'all. Dragons, butterflies, snakes. If you've been having an issue, like seeing the evidence of your progress, so to speak, pay attention when you see butterflies, snakes, or dragons, and I think the moments are going to line up for you. But if nothing else, like I said, thank you so much for staying for the reading, love. I really appreciate it. If you are interested in booking a personal reading with me, please check out the link in the description below. Check out my website. I would love to work with you. But if nothing else, love and light. Have a great rest of your day. Hello, Pile 2. If you chose the little Peter Pan shadow, this section is going to be for you. Let's see what pops up for y'all, because I got a little bit of a intro for my last group. And maybe it's just because I came back from the lake not too long ago, but I'm getting this vibe of lakes. Specifically remembering how when I was walking into the lake originally, I noticed that the sandy floor no matter how still the water on top would be, had those ripples in it. You know, like over time, movement in water is going to make like movement on the ground, the sand. I'm getting this concept for you guys that, like thinking of sediment specifically, this concept of erosion over time and what it can build and destroy. You know what I mean? Like if we look at, like sedimentary rocks, if we're getting into the geology of it all, that is the buildup of years upon years of little tiny pieces of sand or little tiny pieces of sediment gluing itself together through wind and rain and storm to create like a bigger rock. I'm assuming this is a sedimentary rock that I have here. Couldn't tell you for sure, but we're just gonna pretend like it is. Like if you look at something like this, it's all put together very nicely, right? Like it's one solid form. But think about how much time something like this would have to take. If we're talking about in terms of like, you know, sand going together. Or even on a different like perspective of it. Think of the idea of how this small little rock might have eroded or come off of a much bigger like cliff. You know what I mean? There's this concept of like the little things make the difference. And over time, consistency can build something truly foundational. All that aside, I guess let's get right into the reading here and see what pops out for y'all. That's kind of like the current vibe of what's going on here. I do think it has to tie in, as cliched as it is to like use shadow for shadow here, I do think that this has something to do with some shadow work that you've been recently working on. Like I said, this could be under terms of like consistency or small things in a grander scheme. Okay, I think we're getting like big old siren bells with that. I think it's got something to do with like the little things over time that you have worked on, or this like something that you've been putting in little progress in over a long period of time, creating something bigger. And more than that, this something bigger for you is something small that helps this bigger scheme of something even bigger than that. Okay, I'm hoping that made sense. Let's see what's coming through here for your tarot cards. Page of Wands. Oop. Sorry, we're trying to make this as easy to see as possible. I don't like that you can't quite see his face. Okay, Page of Wands. Ooh. Page of Cups in reverse. 10 of Pentacles. And the King of Cups in reverse. And I don't think we're going to do bottom of the deck energy for this group. I think we're just going to do these 4 cards here. So to start off here, I'm getting this idea with the Page of Wands upright and the Page of Cups in reverse. The 2 pages being here are giving me an idea of some sort of partnership. This could be a friend, a lover, a family member, but somebody specifically in your life that feels a little bit of this yin-yang energy. Almost like, I want to say like 2 halves to a degree, but also complete opposites in a sense. And it's almost like the opposition is necessary for them to create. Like I'm getting this idea of how like lava and water create igneous rocks, right? Or I'm not saying necessarily, I should dial back on the geology. I'm not super versed on geology, but this idea that like water cooling down lava can create something, or yeah, I think it's just something with that, where it's this idea of like these 2 completely different elements create something together that is a completely different element entirely. I mean, if you think about it, like, it creates rock, which is earth. And I think that idea of earth is an extension of this foundation here. Like, granted, I should say, too, if this doesn't feel like there's another person that lines up for this, this could be 2 completely polar opposite sides of you. I don't want to discount that either. Because I could get the idea that these are 2 sides of one person, like, fighting to find equilibrium, if that makes sense. But how this is kind of coming through to me is talking to me about some sort of shadow aspect through I want to say emotions and creativity. Creativity to a degree, but mostly emotions here, which could be part of the creative block that may or may not be being experienced right now. I get this sense of like there's some sort of adventure or fun here. And I think for some of you guys, this could be, like I said, either a side of you, or this could potentially be the other person that we're talking about here. That I shouldn't just say other person, this could be other people in your sphere kind of guiding you to this more relaxed energy than you're used to. Not relaxed in the sense of like, oh, well, let's go and let's just go take a nap during the day or something like that. Because that to me is still reading in this sphere as like I'll take a nap so I can get work done afterwards. This is more of like this fun impulsive energy. Not impulsive in the sense of like, oh, we're going to have definite consequences afterwards. But it feels like there is an influence in your life. Like I said, this could be like a side of yourself that you're opening up to, or this could be a specific person or specific people. But there is an influence here in your life that is sparking some of this like childlike wonder to have fun and to play and to explore more. And maybe it's almost to like this Peter Pan Neverland sense to it, if we're gonna call back to the pin. This idea of like, when you go to Neverland, you never have to grow up. But weirdly enough, I think it's that play, that fun, and that exploration that is leading you to learn how to cope with this Page of Cups, King of Cups in reverse a little bit better. I get the sense that maybe you guys in this group are Peter Pan in a way, where it's like you have a lot of fun or you have this childlike wonder to things where it's about playing and having fun. But there's this degree where when emotions are involved or when things get a little too serious, it's hard for you to feel safe, if that makes sense. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's like you're going into a panic attack at the thought of like telling somebody that you like them. But it's a little more of like changing the dynamic from having fun and just being relaxed make things scary, for lack of a better term. And there's this idea that like it's not just in relationships or in connections with other people, but also with yourself at times. It's almost like this avoidance of not wanting to feel the things that you're currently feeling, because it's like, well, that's going to take away from the fun that I'm having. Or if I let myself explore this emotion that makes me sad, then, you know, maybe my whole day is going to be ruined. And I think it's this other energy here. Like I said, you could resonate that this feels like it's another energy showing you this fun, or maybe if you also resonate as this like fun explorative energy, maybe there's another person that matches that here is kind of what we're talking about. But there is this idea that this person can lead you, or you are leading yourself into a better foundation and a more stable reality. I'm not saying that this person or that you are sitting down playing therapist with yourself, but what I am saying is that the circumstances that you are put in right now or with the people in your life might be leading you to this new revelation. I'm sorry in advance for the sniffles. I just had to pause this video to cry a little bit. I'm feeling very overwhelmed with emotion currently, and I don't know if that's because this is like a positive okay that you needed to hear, or if there's just some grief from loss of time that I feel like has kind of come through. Because I feel like there is this epiphany that's kind of hitting, where you're recognizing just how far you've come. I think there's this recognizing here of self-sabotage and how one's fear can truly get in the way of what they want. I'm hearing you don't have to leave Neverland to grow up, but it might be time to grow up. And it's not in the sense of like, you are still being asked to hold that childlike wonder and to have fun, but I think it's something that you have learned that's been sticking with you, if that makes sense. Almost like I'm getting this image of gum on somebody's shoe. And it feels like you've been ignoring the gum for a while, so maybe the gum eventually just hardened on your soul, and it's like something that you feel there, but you kind of just ignored it over time. But I think it's time to start scraping the gum off the bottom of your shoe. And I do think you guys know what I'm talking about with that. There's this idea here of like reflection of wealth and the foundation of where you're at. And while you might be afraid to go forward in something, you're never going to know the answer unless you give it a chance. And I think with this Ten of Pentacles being upright here, there's this idea of no matter how this situation that you find yourself afraid of right now, in facing these emotions and going through the process of something, there's going to be this looking at it fondly in the future. No matter how it turns out now, there is this idea of like reminiscing positively on the foundation that you have created here by taking this chance and allowing yourself to, I'm hearing, feel something. I think there's a perfectionist attitude here when I see the King of Cups in reverse looking back at this Page of Cups in reverse. Because to me, these are just two different levels of the same person. There's the beginning and there's the end here. And to me, this kind of reads as like your inner child and where you are now. And once you look at the foundation of something that you have started or have been contemplating starting, I think it's going to show you some of this unhealed inner child here. And that's not to scare you, but I think it's because you have the strength now to start facing some of these. It coming to me as like dangers. I'm seeing like this image of red and like red lights and sirens and stuff to say like this is scary. This feels like lockdown. Like I'm getting this sense of like, okay, we're locking down the building now. Nobody's getting in. Nothing's getting out. But there's like a soft knocking on this lockdown. And I think whoever's knocking, when you get into this state of panic and fear that feels like this lockdown, I think once you decide to let them in, because it doesn't feel like this person is going to leave or this situation. Like I said, this could be friends, family, a romantic situation, maybe even a pet. But I don't think this person, these people are going to leave. And once you are ready to put down the lockdown of this building, that you're going to be pleasantly surprised. But overall, I am hearing that you can fly, you can fly. So if there's some sort of synchronicity recently about taking a chance on something or allowing yourself to fly, sorry, I'm having trouble articulating here. I think maybe for some of you guys, this might have to do something with expression of truth or your throat chakra, and you're kind of trying to find the right words. It's okay, take your time. I'm going to take my time too. Okay, I am going to leave it at, I do think that there is something that you have wanted to take a chance on, and I'm hearing you can fly, because it's time for you to take that leap and see where it leads you. In the immortal words of the lovely Taylor Swift, love is not lost when perspective is earned. So I do hope that the little bits that we got through here helped. I'm sorry, I'm still a little confused with this reading. But I think I've got one more message for some of you guys out here. It's a little crude, my bad. Think with the proper head. You'll know exactly what it means if that's for you. But if nothing else, I think that that's kind of what we've got going for the reading here. Signs, symbols, and synchronicities for y'all to like, when you see these signs or symbols, pay attention, try to remember this reading and see if it lines up for you. Also, let me know in the comments how it does line up, because I have no idea how this one's going to go. But a specific type of fish, I do think for some of you guys is going to be some sort of silverfish, or I'm also getting like rainbow fish, like from the book. Boats, but like boats with huge sails, like I'm talking like pirate ship kind of boats. And then like greyhounds, I think. Or maybe like salamanders and like wooden staves. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. That's what I have here for you guys today. I really hope this message did help. I'm so sorry for how sporadic and scattered it might have seemed. I think if you are in the vibe of the reading, though, it aligned better for you than maybe it aligned for me. I'm also doing this so far in the future. I have no idea what this could be about. So anyway, Like I said, I hope this message helped. I hope it resonated. If you are interested in booking a personal reading with me, please check out the link in the description below. Check out my website. I would love to work with you, but if nothing else, thank you for staying. Have a lovely day. Hello to my pile 3, my Natsu group. Are you feeling all fired up? Before I get into the cards, I've been trying to do like a little beginning for each of these readings that I have here, like a little what comes to mind as like an energy read. And for you guys, I just keep getting these images of, and maybe it's from the pin, but these images of like fire and diving into these chaotic scenes. Like I got this image of somebody jumping into, like willingly jumping into a volcano. Forgive me, I don't know the story of Icarus, just what I've heard from, like, you know, over time it being a famous tale. But I get this, like, vibe of somebody who's, like, you know, Icarus flying close to the sun, but laughing maniacally as they burst into flames, which I think I saw a video talking about something with that with Icarus not too long ago. But I also get this just, like, I get a sense of, like, this phoenix energy, like, bursting into flames, and I'm hearing, like, what's one more? And there's this concept of, like, thriving in this chaos or finding a way to make this painful. Like, I can't imagine, I feel like one of the most painful ways to die has to be burning to death. But this idea of, like, turning it into some sort of fuel or power. Anyway, let's get straight into the cards here and see what wants to pop out then. Because this is a little different than the other groups. I feel like we're way more cohesive with their analogies. But I feel like it'll make sense by the time we get through this reading here. Okay, we've got 8 of Swords. I am feeling like there's a little bit of depletion, maybe drained energy right now as we're going through this reading. The Chariot. So maybe at the moment we're not feeling all fired up. Or, versely, maybe this is the moment that we've started to feel all fired up. 8 of Pentacles in reverse. Let's get one more card. And the Hanged Man in reverse. The first thing that I'm hearing is that you won't find it here. I think the answer of what you are looking for or what you desire has something to do with moving on with the Chariot coming through here. The 8 of Swords in the position for this spread, if you're familiar with tarot, 8 of Swords usually talks about being stuck to some degree. And I think in this spread, it's kind of honing in on the fact that she's not tied to anything here. She's kind of just standing there, wrapped up, as if she's acting like she has nowhere to go. As if she's acting like she has been tied up and stuck here. But in my mind's eye, to some degree, I am seeing that if we would look behind her in the picture, there's some sort of wooden peg that's, like, pushed into the ground. But to me, it's one of those things where it feels like other people can't see why you are stuck in this position or why you are stuck where you're at. You know, it's not something that you are actively choosing as much as the outside viewer might assume. And it's also like, I see some sort of like sick, sadistic smile when or masochistic, I don't know what to use here, but this like sick smile almost, like she is exactly where she wants to be kind of vibe. And to a degree, I'm also seeing some sort of procrastination energy here. This something here that you know that you should be doing. And part of me wants to say that it has something to do with this moving on with the Chariot here. But there's something that it's almost like you're holding off on doing. And I'm also getting this sense of like maybe you're charging up your energy. Like this, the concept of like Natsu here charging up his energy for some sort of attack. But like I said, there was that concept of you won't find it here. But there's also this everything is falling into place. I'm hoping this will make sense as we keep going. Because, like, if you see here, with the way that the 8 of Swords is kind of lined up with the Chariot, it almost looks like this is an extension of the same background. You know, like, the castles are kind of building up to here, and this kind of looks like it's like, connected in a way. So it's almost like two things are happening at once. Like, in the position that you're in here, this concept of you're exactly where you want to be. this stuck, moving on while you're still stuck where you're at. Does that make sense? Let me see if I can cook up an analogy here. It's almost like if you're stuck at a shitty and like dead end job and you kind of hate the position that you're in, but you don't have the funds to leave currently. So like on the clock or like during your break, you're searching on Indeed or searching for jobs wanted or help wanted in your area. So it's like you might be stuck in the position that you're in now to some degree, even if other people don't see it that way, but you're still cooking away to like turn things in your favor here, if that makes sense. Or that's what you're being asked to do, I think. Because like I said, there's some sort of procrastination energy here where it's either you don't want to see something for how it truly is, or you're kind of avoiding some sort of work that needs to be done because you don't want to right now. And I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm only here to offer some sort of perspective and tell you what the cards are telling me, right? But it feels like whatever you're procrastinating on here, either you're going to have better desire to do it or more motivation to do it, the more that you ground, if that makes sense. Maybe it's recognizing the position that you're in currently, and maybe you've been avoiding that you don't want to be here, or maybe it's feeling like things are outside of your control, so recognizing where you can start taking control again. But with this Hangman in reverse, it kind of is telling me that you need to make a move in order to know what move is going to be right for you, right? It's like, say you're on a fork in the road path, you've got 3 or 4 paths in front of you. You have to start walking the path in order to recognize whether or not that path is going to be meant for you. A similar analogy is like, say you're getting into romance and you have a couple of options in front of you. Well, you got to start going on dates with people to see if you're going to line up with any of that energy, right? But if you kind of are the type of person that fears making the wrong decision, mind you, there is no right or wrong decision. Perspective is only garnered from experience. But I get what you mean by that. You want to be in your desired reality. You want to make the things happen that you desire to happen. You want those goals. You want to make sure you're not settling for less than you're worth. I think it's about taking the small chances on these things. Like, for example, back to the dating example. Going on one date with somebody that you've been talking to does not mean that you are in a committed relationship. Like, getting to know somebody takes time. There's no harm in saying, hey, you want to go out for coffee and go sit down and talk. It's going to be more personable than on your phone, yes, but you're not committing to anything. But I get the sense of whatever part of your life this has to do with, up to this point has been a lot of like this charging up of your energy, so to speak. Back to this, like this example that we were doing with Natsu here, where it's, this building up of something. Maybe you have opened your eyes to exploring a certain venue of your life that you haven't really gone into recently. Like I said, this could be like changing your career path, meeting somebody romantically, starting a new friendship, starting a new class of some sort, going back to school. Something that you've kind of been like building up to for a while, and I think because of the work that you've put into it is going to have a better outcome than your fear that's holding you back is letting you see. I think for whatever action you have to take next or whatever choice you have to take next, you have created such a foundation for it that it's going to be like after you've charged a spell or charged a power of some sort and then used it. I get this, I don't know if you play Smash Bros, but I'm getting the sense of like a charge attack again, where it's like you've honed your energy and you've continued to let it build and build and build. And now this is when you finally get to release it and show how powerful you are. But it's not going to happen if you continue to let yourself play this role, so to speak, of somebody who's stuck. Because, like I said, it goes back into, there's that message that comes through of she's exactly where she wants to be. But also, we're not seeing that she's tied to this post here. But that might be an image that you've concocted that other people think you are for the position that you're in now. Like, say, with this charge attack analogy that we're using, I feel like there's something that you've been silently working on or silently building behind the scenes for a long time. And this is kind of like when we're flipping to the moment to like let everything fall into place. I do think that you guys are a group that has thrived in chaos in the past. And while I don't think you're necessarily entering something chaotic, I think you're using that power to your advantage, so to speak, in whatever this next endeavor is for you. But I think we are eerily close to allowing your charge attack to play out, if that makes sense. Like I said, if the procrastination or this confusion kind of resonates in some sort of way, if we're confused on how to move forward, take some time to allow the answer to come to you as you're taking action. Because when we talk about the Hangman upright, it kind of talks about this stillness. But there's something here where like, what's kind of coming through is if you notice how he's kind of like balanced on one foot here, it kind of looks like in this picture, there's this idea of like, as you are actively doing something, you're going to see just how balanced and just how like stable the foundation you've created for yourself is. Like I said, if we go back to this analogy of dating, maybe there's a lot of fear here that if you go on the first date, you'll fall into old coping mechanisms from old, what's the term? From old attachment patterns that maybe you've had 11:11 on the clock. But going on this date shows you just how strong you've created your discernment, or just how much you are not willing to let somebody shake your idea of worth, or maybe shows you just how not anxious you are anymore, or just how not, I don't know, in your ego you are when it comes to romance anymore. I feel like there's this concept of we're going to see, I'm hearing ready or not. So ready or not, we are going to see your progress and your change here. It's just about whether you are taking the initiative or the universe is going to push you to it. But yeah, I think that's actually, that might be the end of the overall message here. I do have one more little note to say. Take your darkness and your light with you. If you're big with shadow work, we got to remember here that we are not suppressing our shadow. We are loving our shadow into evolution. So it's the concept of like, if you see these little attachment issues start to pop up and you start to get afraid that you're going to fall into old patterns, you've moved past that now. It's remembering not to try to suppress these things that we might feel a little ashamed of or a little scared of, but instead to ask them what they are asking of us. You know, when we find ourselves getting too attached or trying to avoid a new partner, that is a part of our inner child trying to keep us safe. And it's about figuring out how we can show that child that we are safe and work with, especially when we are talking about partnerships, whether it be in career, friendships, romance, communication is key. And I think that this group has learned a lot of healthy communication, but I think you are being asked now to put that into practice so you can learn more healthy communication, but also like, so you can see how far you've come. And then I guess I think that's in terms of like all like kind of an overall, like even if you're not in terms of romance, there's something here about seeing that kind of progress, in the way that I've kind of described. But yeah, whatever your most recent quote unquote death is, or the one that's kind of like changed you the most, I'd say, like it's transformation vibes. If you're into tarot, you know what I mean when I say the death card kind of thing. It's under that category of like the most recent, like some sort of epiphany lesson that you have learned. I think we are going to be putting into practice. If not the most recent, then the most prevalent. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have for y'all today. I would say some sign symbols and synchronicities for you guys, meaning that when you are out in the wild doing your thing, it's gonna, if you see these signs or symbols, it's kind of like a callback to this video to have you kind of thinking under the terms of like the things that we've talked about here. I'm seeing like stars for sure. But trust and believe that in those moments, it's not going to just be like, oh yeah, well, I see stars at night. No, it's going to be specific moments that you see these things. Like something in your gut will tell you like that is your sign. So I'm seeing like stars. I'm seeing like glyphs, like sigils of some sort. See what else comes through here. Something about like yin yang, dark light energy, wings, and anything else. Castles. I think castles are big too. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for staying for the reading, love. If you're interested in booking a personal reading with me, please check out the link in the description below. Check out the bio. I would... Sorry. Check out my website. Check out the bio. Oh boy. Check out the website. Would love to work with you. But like I said, I hope y'all have a fabulous day. Thank you so much for staying.